The gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Farage, I enjoyed Milwaukee at the Harley-Davidson plant with you. That was a great evening. So, question for Mr. Price or Mr. Farage. One requirement for speech to be censored as a false communication offense under the OSA is that speech must cause non-trivial psychological or physical harm. What is non-trivial psychological harm?
I honestly don't know. And that's the problem with this legislation. It's so open-ended, it could mean anything. It leaves this entirely in the hands of local police forces to make their decisions. And the other disturbing element of this is that much within this act can be changed on a whim by a government minister, or at the other end, it can be interpreted by Ofcom in ways that it sees fit. You know, this is not good legislation. It's totally open-ended. It could literally mean whatever you want it to mean.
And local law enforcement, I guess, can make that decision on who they decide to prosecute and who they do not. Have we seen it tending one way or the other? I know we've talked about a couple of cases in here. Are there certain people being targeted, you think, with OSA?
Well, that's the fear, isn't it? The fear is that certain communities will be acted upon more harshly than other communities. That creates the impression of a two-tier country. That then breaks down trust in law and order, the democratic system, and everything else. I thought what was interesting overnight was that the boss, Sir Mark Rowley, the boss of the Metropolitan Police, has said, look, we arrested this guy at Heathrow because we had to under the law, but they've thrown it back to the government to say, come on, can you just define more clearly what you want this legislation to mean? And that's why I think it's rotten legislation. It impacts us in ways that we can't yet foresee. It impacts potentially Americans and American businesses, and it needs to be gotten rid of, and we need to start again.
So, Mr. Price, talking about affecting American businesses, I guess Europe's 440 million people, the U.S. is 300 million people. How do these companies, what do you see down the road for these platforms, these social media platforms, these companies that feel like they have to try and comply if they're going to do business in Europe? If, in fact, we don't repeal this OSA thing, which I hope Mr. Farage is able to do that with his leadership at some point in the near future. So how does this play out for our companies, Mr. Price, and for free speech in Europe in general?
Well, on the corporate side, they're facing a really complicated piece of legislation, and as Mr. Farage outlined, with the provisions that are confusing in the Online Safety Act in the United Kingdom, there are similarly extremely confusing provisions in the Digital Services Act. So the mindset has to be one normally of compliance. One company has stood up to this whole regime and is challenging it at every level, and that's X. I hope others join and do the same, because the European Commission, though, really has been quite threatening. You'll recall the Thierry Breton letter, of course, about the Elon Musk's interview with then candidate President Trump. And you'll also see that other members of the Commission have made threatening remarks against companies as well on these so-called voluntary codes of conduct. When X and Google left one of the codes of conduct, a European commissioner said, well, of course they are voluntary, but we note that you've left them and we'll still hold you on the obligations. And you have Thierry Breton saying as well, you can run, but you can't hide if you leave the codes of conduct. So the whole thing is designed to force compliance, and the hammer that they have, of course, is these enormous crippling fines.
It's like 10% on global revenue, if I understand correctly. So for some of these companies, that's a pretty tremendous fine.
Absolutely, yeah, of turnover.
And I guess, could you, as we're looking through this, it's like almost like people could claim that they were offended or hurt. You hurt their feelings, and then all of a sudden you're a target of this investigation. Is that right, Mr. Farage? Is that kind of?
Yes, and frankly, under free speech, we should be allowed to cause offence.
And that
I should be able to offend
right?
you. You should be able to offend me. And provided we know what the limits are, and the limits I think we fully understand of incitement, for example, then we have to get back to, you know, a much freer way of living. And if people say rude things and we don't like them, well, we just ignore them and get on with our lives.
Like today when you were accused of Russian collusion, I guess. That was pretty offensive.
Well, I remember the Russia hoax very, very well. We had shades of it earlier on this morning. But,
that's what I was thinking.
But not much more than that, I'm pleased to say.
Well, thank you. And, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you. And we're going to have to go, Mr. Chairman, but thank you very much.
Mr. Farage, you can blame it on me. One more. Oh, you're avoiding me.
Mr. Farage, thank you. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman.
I'm sorry to see you leave, Mr. Farage. I actually